Welcome to MAC Bleu, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things MAC Bleu, head to www.macandbleu.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get in. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of MAC Bleu. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky, president and co-founder of Blue Wave. Today I'm lucky enough to have Beth Scarano, who's the CEO of launchPM, which we'll go into in a minute. But before I do, I just want to thank Service Titan and Red Team, who are our co-sponsors for the MAC Bleu podcast, and we'll have more links to them during our posting of this. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Great.
And full disclosure, it was nice enough that Mike Bontrager from Alston Construction had recommended Beth, and so I reached out to her, and she was nice enough to join. So we're all part of the Misfit Club.
Thanks,
right,
Mike.
Beth?
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, he's probably on a golf course right now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Or ride the bike.
Exactly. So a little bit about, if I can give some background, and then we get to pick Beth's brain for all the fun stuff, is that she had started launchPM, which is a commercial construction project management company, which we'll go into a little bit. She's from Nebraska, so I'm going to pick her brain on that. And then she had a non-traditional path, I would say, to the construction space, which will be another fun story. So with that, Beth, if you could start back at how you got to Arizona.
Well, I grew up in a small town outside of Omaha called Elkhorn, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. Had 105 kids in my graduating class. Had my own car when I was 14, and I know the world's bigger out there, so I just wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. So I was a good student, and I got a scholarship to go to Pepperdine.
Ooh,
and
you were smart then.
And so moved over to California. It just wasn't. I didn't really do the research on this college. It was an amazing school, but everybody left on the weekends. It was more like a commuter school for a lot of the LA kids. And so it just wasn't, a great place. You couldn't really walk anywhere. I didn't have a car.
On the cliff.
You're up on a cliff. Yeah. So my parents, my mom and dad my dad was sick of the snow. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. He was like, I'm done with Nebraska. So he had a job opportunity to come to Arizona. So I applied to ASU, and that's how I ended up here. Transferred.
But you didn't go into construction management.
I did not. I wanted to be an actuary, a tax accountant, and so but didn't follow that path either. So anyway, so here I am.
So what? Okay, so but you then after school, did you go into accounting?
No.
You went to an engineering company.
Nope,
No,
not right away. No, I was actually a general manager of an ad specialty company and ran the production they made visors and water bottles and all the ad specialty items. And then I needed to change jobs, and I had a little baby, and life just started to happen, right? So went to work for Caruso Turley Scott, or now CTS, as a structural engineering firm. And I actually started working in a closet, literally a closet. And I did all of my job was really to computerize their billing. So
it combined your background.
Everything, yeah. And everything was manual. And so we, worked with software designers back in the day and, computerize their billing. And I would literally every month, I would take the computer, the big CPU, and the printer home and stay up all night every month to run the invoices and separate them, in the PIN printer. Separate them out, put them all in their piles, and once a month, that was my job. So,
but the fun at Beth's house, that one was more.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, and it would come around really fast every month, and I'd have to do the all night. So eventually, I ended up being a vice president at CTS, and then had some more kids, and decided, had another job opportunity, or actually, I kind of decided to stay home for a little while. My kids, I had 2 little kids, under 2, and. But I was an entrepreneur at the time too. I had a recruiting company. I did interior design for model homes. I, ran the art program at my kids' school. I, just did a whole broad spectrum of things. And then back in about 2000-ish, I needed to go back to work more full time. And so I was fortunate enough to get a job at, due to my kind of days at CTS, I knew a lot of the folks in the AEC industry.
Right.
And so I was able to get a job with a company called Swinnerton Builders.
Of course, out of California.
And so had a great run there. And I really was in the business development side for a long period of time. And
but you were here.
I was here in Arizona, yeah. So they actually they decided to close their office here. They wanted me to move to California. It just wasn't the right time. And so then I, went to Summit Builders. I don't know if you remember Summit Builders. And then went to Holder Construction for a long number of years. J.E. Don Mortensen, kind of made my way around the big
the big ones, yeah.
And then just kind of got to the end of my rope in that field and said, hey, I need to do something else. So that's how launchPM was created.
Go back to, I am curious, we'll get to the construction in a minute, but that EJS, the recruiting thing, did you develop that out of necessity, or did you actually see? I mean, you're obviously an entrepreneurial mind, but what precipitated that, if you will?
People kept asking me. I actually had it called EJS and Associates was my company for that back then. People kept asking me, "Do you know someone? Do you know someone? Do you know someone?" And I've like, well, I might as well get paid for this. Mm-hmm. And so there was another gentleman in town that was actually doing some of this, and I'm like, well, I think I can be just as effective as he could. And so I did it for a while. And then I decided that I really didn't like it so much, getting paid for the referrals and not having people be happy if they didn't work out. And then, there was a whole complexity to it. So I was like, yeah, this is not my thing. So then I went on to do something else, which was, I went to work for another third-party project management firm here in town and really kind of learned the business part of the business. And I just said, I think I can do this. And so I kind of one night sat up and put my company together and
launchPM.
There I am. Yeah, it actually started out as the Launch Biz, and then over time I transitioned to launchPM. So, but so 12 years later, I'm still here.
And kudos to you. But I can imagine that you mentioned all those companies and you knew everyone, especially without patronizing CTS, we all know them. I mean, we're one of the biggest ones in town. We work with them all the time, just like you do. And we've consistently said on this podcast that Phoenix, as large as it is, it still feels like Elkhorn, Nebraska.
Small town, big city.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly, where you can have a meeting in Glendale, and by the time you get to the East Valley, it's like, hey, how'd you know I was over there?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yep. So with that, do you think that actually the environment of Phoenix and Arizona helped you?
Yeah, I think it was a super growth environment. I think it was very entrepreneurial. People were starting, people were coming here to do business. It was a business-friendly environment. And I think over time, it was a big city, but like I said, a small enough town where you still knew people. Mm-hmm. And coming from a big background of business development, my job was to get to know people and build relationships. So fortunately for myself, that was a skill set that I already was good at. So I was able to translate that into my own business.
No, it makes sense. So let's go back. And I know there's a lot of sophisticated listeners and watchers to our podcast, but there's sometimes a misnomer and misunderstanding of construction management. So let's kind of break it down. And we were talking off air beforehand. So you're basically doing construction management as an agent for your clients. Then we have a lot of people, and just so I'm going to throw out some acronyms so everyone's on the same page. We have CMA, which is Construction Management as Agency, and then CMAR, or CM at Risk, which is almost more where you're construction management, but you're almost performing as a GC at the same time.
I think you perform as a GC, but at risk from the contract type.
Right, it's just contractual. Yeah. But so you're focusing more on being a true owner's agent or
project manager, owner's agent.
Yes. Yeah. And then what? Okay, when you were back thinking about doing launchPM and doing that, you'd been working for all these large GCs. What were some of the differentiators that you, how did you write that out on a piece of paper on your computer and go, this is what I want to do versus what I don't want to do? Because you actually have a contractor's license as well.
Yes.
But what were those defining moments of where I want to go this path?
I think the biggest thing is in one of my roles in kind of the big construction companies and business development was putting projects together and pieces of the puzzle together, creating teams, doing all those
So
things.
real emphasis on pre-construction.
Right. Huge emphasis. And a lot of those bigger companies, that's the selling point that they have is their pre-construction expertise. And so I think I took that and said, I like those pieces of putting all the pieces together. And then I like being kind of picking the team and putting all the groups and the right people together for the right projects. And so what I was able to do is transition that to like taking that role of being kind of the right hand or owner's representative, project manager for clients. And we select, we work on the front end on, sales or purchases of property. We help create the team. We hire the architects, the engineers, the contractors, even certain subcontractors, depending on the type of project.
Consultants, the whole nine yards. Yeah.
Consultants, all the FF&E requirements. We do the physical move. And then, so we basically look at their projects holistically and say, how do we get you from your vision to completion and sitting at your desk doing your job?
So I have to ask the obvious and tough question. When you first started, did you have a client to get you going?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So I was competing against actually like CBRE and for a company called Ortho Arizona. Yeah. And at the time they were not the big Ortho or
that we know now. Yeah.
Today, but they were a group of physicians located in the East Valley, and they were moving into a new building out in Gilbert. And I went in and interviewed, and they selected me over and above CBRE, and that was kind of my first foot in the door.
That was your catalyst, right?
And I ended up doing several projects for them over time until they became the big, Ortho Arizona.
So then I would imagine that between that, the testimonials of them, and they were no slouch, and then everyone you knew, it kind of just, did it organically grow at that time? Yeah,
and then from them, I got to probably my largest client in the history of my company is actually Honor Health.
Oh.
So I've done probably almost 190 projects for them, over probably $60-70 million in construction. We have a master services agreement in place with them to do all their ambulatory or outside of the hospital projects. And so that really was probably the biggest launch pad for me. And then from that, we expanded into a lot of different market sectors, including, really office, industrial, and, then medical office, and then just kind of random or miscellaneous.
So one of the questions, how do I ask this? So a lot of people, your role, I mean, this role, this CMA role, it seems like for a long time it had gone up, and then you're one of the few that's still doing it.
And I think the difference is that I never did that really institutional type work.
Right.
So all of our work, knock on wood, is referral based.
Right.
We work with a lot of brokers that bring us in on the front end to help assist them in whether it's a pitch or just they need some guidance. Their clients need some guidance and support. So we've been super fortunate for the referral base, and so. And that's really what it's been. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, one of the kind of most important things to me is basically do what you say.
Novel approach, huh?
And so I just always kind of kept my head down, and we did what we said. And fortunately, I was lucky enough to get a lot of great clients and people that believed in us and gave us a chance.
Now, do you think, because here's kind of looking at both ends of the spectrum, you worked at all the big GCs, you know everyone in town at that level, and then now you're either advocating, you're the gatekeeper now for them getting in.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So do you think that has it been a bigger advantage or disadvantage having all that experience and those contacts?
I think it's been a definite advantage.
Right.
I think understanding the mechanisms, especially how the GC side works and understanding pricing structures and all of
You're able things.
Yeah, we can.
You mediate, basically.
Yeah, basically understand and vet out, like, hey, you guys are charging, your fees are too high, or what are you really putting in this
Or the general conditions.
The conditions, and do you really need to charge them?
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
Much for 2 porta-johns or whatever it might be. So, but I think it was definitely helped to be able to analyze that right out of the chute and provide some good, solid feedback and guidance to our clients.
So one of the, and again, I'm going to be blunt because I'm not trying to pick holes, but I think, because I want to give you kudos where it's deserved, is when you're really good at this, you continue to get clients and you get referral work, like you said. But I've also seen, and I'll go back to, I'm from the Midwest, kind of like you. I also saw, and I'm old enough to where we can compare the cyclicality of where this went. I also saw where if CMA did their job too well and they brought in a GC that was really good, then the owner would just pick the GC and then cut you out.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, you see that sometimes.
Yeah. In my case, not very often, honestly, but it's actually ironically been, one particular architect in town, whenever we would bring them in, they would position themselves to say they could do what we did. And it was kind of ironic.
I was going to say, don't bite the hand that feeds you, right?
Yeah. So, but for the most part, the contracting side has been fairly
good. You build loyalty.
Yeah. And most of the clients, I don't mind, you guys, the contractor holds a warranty. They need to contact them. But, we stay engaged, a year after the project, just like the GC does, to make sure everything, all the warranty stuff, if they have issues, they call us. And, we just help them navigate through. So I think that builds some good credibility and rapport with the clients, and they call us back.
Right. Excuse me. What? And I'm not trying to ask you to give away any trade secrets, but I think a lot of people would say, geez, Beth, how do you monetize this? Do you do it set fee, percentage? How do you make money at this?
So, we've been really profitable year over year.
That's congratulations.
So it's good. I have a small team. When I first started, I didn't want any employees,
right?
Honestly. But I just realized that you can't scale and grow without that. So today I have 9 folks that work.
Oh, wow.
So, we manage about 50 to 60 projects at a time and we have, myself included, 2 other PMs, and then a couple, 3 coordinators and some accounting staff and so forth. And so I think that I've struggled a bit with some of that to understand. So I was never a big proponent of keeping, a time card. That was my personal
just a bias that you had. Yeah.
But, as you add more people and you have to manage that. So now it's originally it was kind of a percent of cost or managed cost. And sometimes that could get misconstrued as a negative because, maybe the client would think that you're trying to escalate costs and get more fee. And we'd have to be very clear up front. Everything was super open book. But now we've kind of gone back to more a time-based, like estimating, okay, this project will take X number of hours at these different phases. And here's a fixed fee per month. And that seems to have worked much better. And better all the way around from an accounting perspective, from ability to bill on a regular basis without too much complication. So
it's almost like building I hate to say it, but the recurring revenue model.
Exactly.
Consistency, so your clients, and let's be honest, it's better cash flow.
They have a fixed budget, even though they knew where we were all the time. But this is a lot more palatable for a lot of people.
Right.
Because they don't feel like they don't know what it's going to be.
So go back to, and we'll just keep going off on all sorts of tangents. That's the way my brain works. Back to the 9 folks or the 9 team members that you have. What are you still challenged with? And I shouldn't say challenged. What do you still keep in-house versus outsource as far as the different, deliverables that you promise?
So really all the deliverables that we promise are in-house.
Okay.
So, as far as, budget management, schedule management, all of those things, all the documentation, things that we have to show and deliver is all done in-house. The things from my company perspective is where I outsource. So I outsource all my accounting, payroll, all of that is outsourced. All my PR marketing is outsourced, because I just don't have those aren't revenue generating tasks.
It's your SG&A or your overhead, yeah.
So, but really that's about it.
Now, do you only work on the private side or do you work on the public side as well?
We only work on the private side.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't get into a bunch of like prevailing wage type things with...
Well, the only time we ever have to deal with that is if a project is being funded in a certain way that require Davis-Bacon or like they're getting a federal grant or something.
But still, you can manage
We can manage that, yeah. But we don't, but we don't bid or have to bid on projects or go through that RFP process in the private side.
Got it. So I'm back to those referrals then. Is it typically that you're just negotiating with them or back to the RFP or RFQ? Do you have many that you actually have to do even on the private side? Do you have that?
I would say I have one a year, maybe.
You're like, what the hell is this?
I don't know how to do this anymore.
Come on, Beth.
What do you mean I have to? Yeah, we just really don't. We don't really have to engage that way.
Okay, so take a drink as much as you need to.
Sorry.
So technology, as more and more, you're bringing all these entities together, whether it's the owner, the different design groups, all the consultants, even on the front end, you were talking about the entitlement work that you might do with that whole group as well. What have you had to do from a launchPM standpoint to adapt and cultivate technology changes? Like how? Let me give you an example. I'll put the GC hat on, and one of the things that I get from the subs all the time is, oh, great, I got to learn another software because you're using Procore and they're using Red Team and you're using whatchamacallit and you're using this, that, and you put yourself, when it gets down to this level, or I got to use Texture, I got to use GC Pay, all those different things. How have you been able to navigate that headache?
Well, ideally, I feel like my next venue or next entrepreneurial idea will become some kind of a technology company to kind of grasp all of these things and put it into a functional software that really does what we do, because there isn't really one out there that does kind of this owner as agent, owner's rep function. And so we've been exploring a lot, and we have to work because we work kind of at the mercy of our client. Mm-hmm. So they have their own set of software requirements. And then, each GC has their own software, that they use for their, construction project management. So this year we've checked out, the usual cast of characters, but this year we went on to Autodesk Build, and we're just kind of seeing how that is going to work for us. And that was just kind of a fluke because we use a product called PlanGrid, mm-hmm. and Autodesk bought PlanGrid. So they basically gave us, for a really reasonable price, 3 years of Autodesk Build. And versus like Procore was super expensive for us because they base it on your revenue of projects. And we don't, I try to explain.
As an owner's agent, you're going to pay twice as much as what you
a GC would pay, but we're not really functioning in the same. They just couldn't grasp that. And so we're trying to see how that works for us. But, as far as technology goes, I have a young group of like project coordinators that grasp technology really fast. So we use a lot of software like Bluebeam. We use Smartsheet. We use AI all the time for all kinds of things. It's been a really phenomenal tool. What else? We used a meeting recording software called TLDV until now we use Zoom a lot, so it has its own, now they're all the like Teams and all the, those are coming out with their own AI components. Let's see what else. But I try to really be open-minded about technology and really try to stay at the forefront to see what tools can we engage to make us work smarter, not hard.
Well said.
Yeah.
What do you feel, because you're so, how do I say this? I wouldn't say you're more connected to the owner, but because there's a deeper trust there, what are you hearing what are their complaints still?
As far as concerns or...
Well, let's actually take this broad base and keep narrowing it down. Okay, so you obviously you've done a great job with launchPM of not maintaining that CMA type thing in the marketplace where a lot of markets, it's dried up. Okay, so kudos to you. But again, as these owners keep coming back to you, I'm curious to hear what they're saying. It's like, Beth, you did a great job, but on this next one, I want you guys to do X, Y, and Z. What is the client asking more of you to do?
I think the biggest thing that we see is they're still struggling with cost.
Well, who isn't though?
Right. But I mean, that's really like, they just don't understand. And I think the other part kind of challenge, not only from the owners, but from the brokers, they don't understand either. So a lot of times they're kind of the first,
good point,
first person that they're talking with, and they still are operating, 5-10 years ago with cost in it. So they give them, they give them a
square foot price.
Yeah, they give them a misrepresentation of cost, and then they're surprised at what really is. Someone told me a long time ago, good news or bad news doesn't get better with time. And so a lot of times I have to be the real bearer of bad news, right? But I think they're really concerned about cost. I think the other challenge is they don't understand kind of all the things that need to go in to make a building function.
Mm-hmm.
So they think, we just hire the architect and the contractor, well, we're done. And in reality, no, they're not. You got cabling, you got AV, you got security, you got maybe artwork, you got furniture.
Like you said, you've got
all the different
the things you do, the FF&E, the turnover, the warranties, all these things. And if you're even getting into some of the asset management for them, and again, not to belittle or scorn our friends and colleagues that are in the CRE space, but it seems like they're getting more and more pressure to almost be or property managers, and they're coming to people like you and I, specifically you, going, Beth, help! How do we navigate these waters? That's where I'm kind of trying to go. Is like, how much more are you almost looking at asset management and property management is kind of holistically being into the...
We actually engage with all the facets of that, and a lot of times, work super closely with all those people. Mm-hmm. But for example, I just had a conversation today with one of our clients, and he bought a building in Mesa, and it turned out that it's a group of condo buildings. He bought one of the condos. Well, one of the other condo owners, through their property manager, took the meter that was assigned to their building that they needed for the power to support but the purchase agreement never indicated they should have a dedicated meter. So I'm reviewing the purchase agreement for the owner, saying, how did you not include this? Like, this should have been stated in your purchase agreement. So I think I think that's, everybody's working at such a fast pace. And I feel like sometimes, not that they're asking more of me. I get involved in a lot of weird things because I think I'm flexible, I think, and try to be helpful. But I feel like they're not really looking at things correctly, or not really getting the guidance that they needed to get on the front end to make all the decisions that they need to make. And so a lot of things come as a surprise. And so that's where I see kind of they're maybe struggling with. But I think bottom line is, I think a lot of times they don't realize, even if we're involved or not, they don't realize, they say, oh, well, my office manager is going to do this. And they really don't have the tool set. And they realize that after a short period of time, and they're like, okay, you're right. We need you. So that's kind of a good thing for us. But, those are some of the challenges.
Is that hard then to go back and, because you want to provide value to your client. And we're on the client side of this conversation right now. We're going to go to the other side in a minute. But is it hard then? I mean, in our world, that's called a change order.
Yeah.
So in your world, it's, okay, client, we'll do this service because you asked for it, and we could provide value. Do you have to do the similar thing as an agent?
Okay. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Or, I used to not be as good about it because I, was too nice, maybe, I don't know, at the end of the day. now I'm really trying to be like, here's a defined scope. If it goes past this date, just like everyone else, our fees get extended if it's more time for us. And so I'm trying to be more supportive of my business and making sure that I'm covering my people's time without just giving all the things away.
Got it.
I think when you start out, you're trying to build relationships, you compromise certain things. And now I'm like, I have to run a business too. I have to make payroll too. I have to do all these things too. So I need to make sure that I'm being smart about how we're, charging per time and tracking costs.
So now let's go down a couple of those tangents on this kind of paradigm, if you will. Now I want to know let's go to the front end, because you deal with a lot of entitlement and brokerage type deals and land deals. What is that group, in a general sense? What are they coming to you saying, Beth, can you help us with this? Because now, let's say they know you're engaged with the customer, or even maybe you're just soliciting at that time. What are they asking more of you to do now than they did before?
It's really similar to it's project managing different groups of people, just like we would oversee design and construction. This is somebody that's a point of contact for the attorneys, all the engineers for the Alta surveys, the geotech guys, all the purchase documents, someone that's contacting the utility.
I was going to say utilities are a huge one. Yeah.
So really kind of taking that kind of higher level project management to that group of people, and even working closely with the different municipalities, depending on where they're going, making sure that, especially, like you mentioned, power, utilities are a big deal. Power is a huge deal these days.
Well, ordering the switchgear in time and the transformers.
There is power available to the site, especially for some larger, more comprehensive.
With data centers and things like that. Yeah.
Industrial projects that have high power uses. And so it's really kind of doing that same kind of level of project management that you would do in a typical design construction, starting at that phase, but on the very front end. And so that's really where, and I feel like that's one of my strong suits, is because I really can step back and say, okay, all of you guys all the people need to get together. Here's a schedule and a plan. Here's how we're going to execute all these, so people aren't just flailing with no point of contact and direction.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to bait you, but I will make a general comment that whether it's you as an agent, or like we talked about our fraternity and sorority of friends that are in the larger GC companies that have just huge defined pre-construction services, when you look at the difference between those highly successful companies and the ones that kind of fake it to make it or just get by, it's, how do I describe it? I'm going to go here to come back. The ones that just focus on the AE, the architects and engineers, and maybe, find the Altas and some of that pre-work, that's one thing. But you can tell when you get to that next level of those that understand, like you were talking about, the utilities, the municipalities, even the environmental, like a phase 1, phase 2, I could go on and on, of really getting into a lot more of the entitlement type stuff because let's be honest, the dirt that's left to develop on, or even if you're going in to raise something and redo it, there's skeletons there, right? And so looking at the educated and the people that take a proactive approach, I think you did a really good job of explaining that, because a lot of people don't realize there's that much more work. There's like a whole nother phase before you
even get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so now let's transition. Thank you, by the way. That was a great explanation. Now let's go to more of the hardcore, like where most people start, which is just the A&E. Mm-hmm. So again, I asked the same question. What are the architects and engineers now saying, Beth, can you help us more on X? What have you seen as a transition maybe in the last 4 to 5 years of what they're asking more for you to do?
I guess they really don't ask.
Or how about the situational part of it?
We really, we try to really give clear guidance and direction on scope for the design team. So, and one of the things that we try to do really well is give them as much information as they need to do the project well.
Okay.
So, making sure that the client has all their equipment lists in order, making sure that they understand where they need power and data, or if they don't, we give them guidance and direction.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
Direction on what that needs to be, making sure that if you're going to have a card access reader, you need electrified door hardware, so just simple things like that we kind of take the burden off of the architects and engineers of trying to guess some of that information sometimes, or designing in what I call in a bubble, and give them clear direction on scope.
Great part to go down this path. Are you typically doing plan and spec or design build?
Plan and spec.
Okay.
Design build on occasion, but not very often.
It gets a little muddled.
And in our role, it's really not necessary.
Right.
With us engaged per se.
Right.
Because we manage that to a degree. Plus, we add the other component involved, FF&E, which isn't typical in a design build scenario.
No, and I was kind of setting that up for you to, I was kind of putting the ball on a tee for you, going.
I don't know if I answered.
Well, I'm just because it's me. I want to always kind of take a position of who's ever watching or listening, going, "Hey, JJ, I'm the ESP's coming to ask Beth this question because we want to know." Okay, so now let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Now, the general contractors, the subcontractors, the trade suppliers, all those people. Same question. What have you seen them asking, and where you're helping facilitate that connection from, I call it the end user back to the client? Because this is where, again, without patronizing you, this is where some of the really good construction management companies really solidify and bridge that collection. Like you were talking about, let's use Division 27 or low voltage. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times a developer or client will come and, in a traditional sense, without you present, is we as a GC going, hey, they missed the whole scope here. And then they're sort of shocked as hell when they get they
don't know.
Yeah, it's well, there's no back boxes, there's no conduits for all this stuff. Did you guys forget you still have to do this? Wi-Fi the whole damn building. Isn't that a good example?
Yeah. So we actually take all that vendor coordination with FF&E up front.
Okay.
And so that really helps. That my goal really is to build it super well on paper, so that when you're in the field, it's super easy, right? And so that we try to answer all those questions on the front end with the FF&E requirements and make it a lot less complex. You still have to do your normal, process, do a box walk, do a door coordination meeting, all those kind of things. But we try to really do a great job with the client and the vendors and the contractors and the architects and engineers to build it well on paper. So that by the time we get to the physical construction and, either a shovel goes in the ground or a stud, floor gets laid out or, nail goes in a wall, that part's the easy part. And we're on cruise control versus, oh, we forgot this. Oh, we forgot that. Oh, yeah. So
how much do you find your team at any juncture of the process, but I would think it'd be more in the upfront, where you're actually bringing resources to the table and connections that you have?
All the time.
Okay.
That's kind of a constant.
And I think that's the part that's missed or misconstrued of what you guys do, because I don't think people realize the value you bring to those connections. Let's use the 27. Yeah, you could do it, but there's engineers, call them electrical engineers, that specialize in that, and I'm sure a half a dozen of them in town that are excellent, where you're like, hey, based on your usage, call Chuck or Diane or Bob and have them give you a proposal, because the under the traditional thing, the double E under the architect hasn't designed this. Is that a good example?
They make us, they don't, a lot of times what we find is the engineers, they don't know.
Right.
And so they really need guidance and direction, right? To tell them, they don't know their equipment. They don't know where a printer's going to go. They don't know what kind of, what the configuration is at a desk or where they're going to sit. They just put things in a kind of a standard location that don't always work. They put a floor box. Well, we don't need it there. We need it, 2 feet from the wall or 5 feet from the wall because their table leg is at the end of the wall, not in the center of the room where the feed comes through. So, we don't want power poles. We want all the, the workstations to be either off the wall or floor cores. So things like that. So, I think we just, we really, like I said, really tried to bring that level of coordination up in the front end of the project so that we don't have a lot of disconnects or misses in the field.
Another question I want to ask you was the supply and demand for what you do. Is it typically more of a finished product or a gray shell? And the reason I'm asking is there's so much gray shell building going on in the valley that's, let's be honest, it's the tilt up in distribution industrial, and then the TIs come in later. Do you find that you're more on the finished side or more on that shell?
It's really the same. It's
both.
Mostly, very rarely do we just do a gray shell.
Yeah.
It's usually do, the shell building and the TIs all together. So we don't really get into...
Well, and I get it.
There's no real need for us in that environment per se.
No, the GCs can typically handle it, or the CMARs.
Yeah, or they're not, the interiors are the interiors, and they don't, they just do the bare minimum to deliver, the gray shell that can be built out by somebody else. So we really, either from a client that's building a full ground up, shell and TIs, or just the, TIs, or even we've done several like retrofits to like conversions of retail facilities or big box to healthcare. We just finished about a year ago, we took a car dealership and converted it to a multidisciplinary medical clinic and had to extend a mezzanine and, at the second floor, it was, so, just really kind of that creative reuse.
Yeah. I think you're going to see more of that too. I mean, I'm not here to be judge or jury, but when you look at kind of the emptiness of Class A and Class B office, whereas flex and warehouse and industrial sell the demand, or let's even go further, go to any hard corner in the valley and, the old strip mall, the old Walgreens, the old CVS that are all vacant now. How are we going to repurpose those, right?
They're going to be.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to actually transition, or the apartment, office building to apartment conversions.
Right.
Those are kind of slowly making their way into the marketplace.
Agreed. What, go back to some granular stuff here. So in your team, what would be, I guess what I was trying to say, ask how much, where are you in the pecking order of representing the client, like on a weekly, like let's take a project and let's take the weekly meeting, like the OAC meeting as we call them. Are you typically in charge of that, or are you second in command of that? On a typical job?
If we try to delegate if we're in the physical construction phase,
yes,
we try to delegate that to the general contractor.
Okay, so they'll run the weekly meeting. You'll be there though.
We're giving.
You're truly all representing them.
Yeah, we're there.
But you're not running that actual meeting.
No, we're asking questions, making them be accountable, doing all those things, but we're not running that meeting. However, on the front end, up until that point, till we make that transition, we run all those meetings.
The true pre-con.
Yeah. Up and through, the kickoff to the design, to all the design milestones, and then, once we make that handoff and we physically start construction, we pass that off to the GC.
And then what about let's say the C of O takes place then? Again, I think you're in a unique position. You actually stay involved quite a bit longer afterwards.
Yes. So we manage the completion of the punch list. We track all that. Once the C of O occurs, depending on what the next step is.
Right.
If it's a physical move, if it's a licensing for a medical office facility, we're involved till all that happens, till they actually have their first day of business.
Makes sense. Because see, a lot of people don't realize there could be weeks or months there, especially in the spaces and the verticals that you guys play in. And you did a great job because medical is a huge one. You have all these other regulatory agencies.
You have to do all your FF&E and install and get all your certifications, and then you can schedule your site survey, and then the state comes in. And that could be 30 days. It could be 90 days.
Yeah, it can be quite a while.
Yeah.
What, let's go back and talk about the team that you've attracted. What's kind of the background?
It's been really...
Are they all accountants?
No, not even.
I'm just being a smart ass.
None of them are. Actually.
They're all washed out general contractors.
Yeah.
ex-lawyers.
They're all like, actually, my team's really grown organically. So it's all been through relationships. One of the Angie, who's my, kind of office manager, she worked with Abnet. They were a client of mine, and she was getting ready to retire. She's like, I need something to do. So she came on as kind of to help me on the administration side. And then the two PMs, one of them was a friend of my son's, played lacrosse at ASU, was looking to do something different. He's like, can you talk to Mike? And I'm like, happy to. And he was a great kid. He's been amazing.
Nice.
He's been there going on 6 years now. So another one was a Chris who used to work with Mike Bontrager at White's. And he and I worked on a project that I was the project manager on in Gilbert, and he was working for another GC. And I need to hire a more senior person to give me some backup. And he's like, well, what about me? So he came on board. And then the rest of the people just kind of fell in, so almost all of them I've known in some form or fashion in their previous jobs. And
well, that's the master networking that you do, right?
But I only have one seat left, so that's it. So
right. So anyone that's out there, she's only got.
I got one seat. Not sure what the role is.
She's capping the resumes at 100.
I only have one seat, and that's it. But so it's been and then some of it's just I just feel really great about the team. They're super hard workers, super dedicated, and really, I think, enjoy what we do. And I think we've done a great job of building a good reputation. And like I said, doing what we say.
Now, do you basically stay in the Valley, or do you work all over the state?
We actually work all over the country. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all over the country. Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, so it's, again, kind of where our clients take us.
Right.
And so, we at various times we'll have projects, the only place we don't work is in New York City. And
there's reasons, yeah.
The rest of the place is open. And we have at least one or two projects going on in another state pretty much at all times.
What put your business owner hat on and this construction management hat on at the same time? What challenges do you see coming? Either as the owner of launchPM or in the CM space in general?
The biggest challenge that I see coming is the kind of, if I take a step back and as I get, older and want to
mature, you're not getting older, you're maturing.
Or, get closer to a point where I may want to take some, less time or retire or whatever the case may be. Being able to pass that baton in a way that I can transition the business to continue to be successful. And so we're really working hard on that transition plan now to create the skill set especially in the two other PMs that can allow them to put their business development hat on, forcing them to engage in going outside of their day job, to networking events and associations and things like that, to start building those relationships in a different way than they've been used to doing. And so that's one area of concern. The other area of concern is just there's so many people coming into the Valley now, and in a lot of ways, even though I've been great at business development, I've actually gotten a little comfortable in not doing it so much because I haven't necessarily had to very much anymore. And so now I'm finding that I have to get it back out there and be relevant. I can't just get in this comfort zone. And because there's so many people I don't know, where I used to be able to go to an event and I would know almost everyone there, I go places now and I know 5 people there, so I'm trying to push myself to re-engage. So that's a challenge from a business owner, to keep building those relationships in new business.
Yeah, thanks for your humility there, because I think there's more in the majority that fall into that trap than the other. I don't think that people can comprehend the math of what's happening in Phoenix. I try to keep up with our colleagues at Phoenix Business Journal.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, they do a great job of publishing everything, and Chris Camacho and we go on and name all the economic development people that impact what we do or help impact what we do. And to keep up, it's almost mind-numbing to look at the numbers, and even the contrarians that are, let's say the national economy went to crap tomorrow. what's already started here in Phoenix is almost you that ship sailed. Like it might veer a little bit, but you're not going to turn the Titanic around. And so I think you bring up a really good point for a lot of business owners or people that are watching or listening is don't be complacent, because there's how many thousands of people coming here every day, every month, and you have to touch those people as well.
Yeah. Can't get comfortable.
Right.
If you want to continue to grow, I think is what it bottom line.
In the short time we have left, let's talk a little personal, if you don't mind. What do you do for fun?
Well, I love to travel.
Yeah.
I'm a big traveler. We do a lot of, we have a group of friends, my husband and I have a group of friends that we do all these bike trips across Europe.
Oh, fun.
So we probably in the last...
So you're a biker.
Yeah. So I have, when we do these trips, I have resorted to an e-bike, but, in the past I was on a road bike, but I have resorted to an e-bike. So we try to go at least one big trip like that a year.
Nice.
This year we're not going across the pond. We're just going to go to Maine and do a lighthouse and lobster tour around Maine. So that's coming up in June.
As a Midwest girl, you've had to have done Reg Bray then, haven't you?
No, I didn't, but my husband just did it.
Oh, did he?
He was there. I think it was their 100th year. I want to say.
Oh, it seems like anyone in the Midwest knows the ride across Iowa. Yeah.
I did go for the end though.
Okay.
I did go to support. I was support.
You were the designated drinker at the end.
I was the designated riding in the
support team.
Support team.
Mix me a drink, man.
Yeah, it was super hot. But he did a great job. So, but yeah, it was a cool thing. But yeah, we try to do a lot of biking. We go to Puerto Vallarta once a year.
Oh, nice.
I'm a big skier. I ski a couple times a year. Like to hike. I have 5 grandkids.
Oh, so you're busy.
With those.
Are all your kids grown?
All my kids are grown. They all live here. So,
look out.
We have all boys, so very active, busy. My grandkids are all boys. So, so I have a daughter, a stepdaughter, and then 3 boys. So
nice.
We have a big crew. So
it's called a support team.
Yeah. So everybody lives close by. So it's just like, and then I have a unique situation too. With like I said, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and in the last several years, both my little sister and one of my brothers both bought houses here and live like 2 minutes from me. So they each come down for like the winter time or different. So it feels like I'm just constantly on the entertainment cycle of like, who's making dinner tonight? Who's coming over tonight? Where are we going tonight? So by the time about this time of the year and everybody leaves, I'm like, I can't keep up with it.
All right, snowbirds, go home.
Like, go home. I'm still working. I don't know about you, but anyway, so it's been super fun. But we like to be busy. I'm an avid reader and work out several days a week and just kind of try to keep my head on straight.
What about any like networking or philanthropic groups in town? Is there anything that you're really behind?
Yep. I actually do make an effort to do one nonprofit project a year.
Nice.
I've been on several boards. Currently on the board for a company called Hushabye Nursery.
Oh, what do they do?
Take in opioid addicted babies out of the NICU and rehabilitate them. So
that's a hell of a task.
It's an amazing. I've been involved with that organization for going on about 7 years now. We built them a brand new. It was the director's dream to have this type of facility. So we were able to build them a facility down on 30th Street in McDowell, and they're already busting out the seams for. So we're starting to do some renovations to that building. Was kind of just really involved in Make-A-Wish. Did a bunch of work with Make-A-Wish, Arizona Children's Association, Arizona Children's Alliance. So a lot of, child-related, kids and family-related organizations. But I try to give back something every year. I just completed my executive leadership team for the Go Red for Women, which is the Arizona Heart Association too. So just finished up my tenure with them. So
well, I won't read her list of accomplishments, but she's well entrenched in the community, and everyone knows her. And to Beth's credit, she's done some really good things. So I give you a golf clap and a pat on the back.
I call it good karma.
Yeah.
But you get what you get.
Yeah. would be remiss if I didn't ask, what else would you like the audience to either know about you, your company, the industry, just in the last few minutes? Just, is there anything that you'd like to just share? That you kind of open mic for you.
It's a hard question for me.
Oh,
I feel like you should ask me because I don't want to.
no, well, good. No, because it's like I try to, as a host, you're always trying to look at someone's past and try to bridge all those things. But I'm human; I can't think of all. So I'd be like, "All right, Beth, what have you been dying to say?"
Yeah. I mean, I really think I'm just super grateful for all the people that have given us an opportunity, given me an opportunity, believed in me, and allowed me to have this amazing late life entrepreneur chance.
That's pretty cool.
So
yeah. No, I give you tremendous kudos because it's anybody that's an entrepreneur knows it's a leap of faith that's hard to come back from. And then once you're there, to go back is even harder. But there are days, right? There are days where you're like, what in the hell did I get into? But a testament to you and your team. So thank you so much for coming on today, Beth. Again, launchPM, if anyone's is interested, I'm sure her or team, whether you're a potential client, you have any questions about what they do is in true construction management. Again, there's many people out there that have given the endorsement of Beth Scarano and her team, and Mike was just one of them, but there's a number of people that we know mutually, and I've heard nothing but the greatest things about you. So I just thank you for representing the industry and kind of our fraternity and sorority. So.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the MAC Bleu Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the MAC Bleu podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday